Hi professional writers, welcome to video 3 of week 4. This is the final video and it is about how to adapt your instructions into a procedure, how to write a procedure. Now remember, on day 1 we did memos, on day 2 we did instructions, and now I'm going to ask you to pull it together in procedures. So we're going to talk about procedures, we're going to review what the sections of a procedure are, and how it's different from a policy. Now a policy comes first. A policy is legal language that your company writes to protect itself, and so then you write your procedure from that policy. You adapt it from that policy, making it more easy to read, more easy to follow, stuff like that. Okay, let's get into our stuff about procedures. Okay, I also have for you today terrible life hacks. Don't do these life hacks, they're not good. Okay, so what are instructions versus procedures? This should be familiar from the last video. Remember, instructions help to perform a task. They encourage safety, convenience, and efficiency, and they give step-by-step instructions. Now, procedures are more about policies, duties, protocols, and guidelines within a company. How are procedures different from instructions? Well, instructions can be for anyone, including customers, but procedures are for internal use. Remember, they're written in memo format for this class, and so they're really for your employees / co-workers, okay? Procedures have a lot more to do with policies and legal rules or regulations than just general kinds of instructions. But procedures often include an instructions section, which is why we went over instructions and why they're helpful, okay? Introduction. So because your procedure is going to be a kind of set of instructions, it's going to have a lot of the same sections as your instructions. So I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. They should be familiar from the last video. All right, just like a set of instructions should have an introduction, your procedure should have an introduction. Make sure to state why the procedure is useful, okay? And then if there's any specialized equipment, like some people have done like a license card scanner, so to make sure like a license is legit and not fake, or like a credit card register type thing, you want to say how that works, okay? Point out any safety measures you need to. Now remember, it's not just physical safety, but legal safety. Maybe also like you want to point out that if they don't follow the procedure, there will be consequences that could lead up to firing or something like that. And then stress advantages and benefits to the reader. If they follow these steps, how will that help them? Okay. Finally, provide the hyperlink to the policy. Okay. Don't forget your list of materials if it's applicable. It might not be, but if it is, don't forget it. And you want to include any warnings or cautions. Put warnings or cautions either at the beginning or close to the pertinent steps. Make sure you use graphics to make these stand out, okay? Now remember, warnings ensure people's safety, cautions ensure equipment safety, include both, okay? Make sure you include notes, which clarify and provide helpful hints of how to follow steps. They're not necessarily safety steps, but they're there. And you can and should use all of these in your procedure. Warnings, cautions, tips, notes, stuff like that. And use pictures, use bold, use red font or colors, make them stand out. And sometimes you can bump them even out of alignment with the rest of your document, so maybe they're indented, as well as, you know, right next to a stop sign, for instance. Okay, make sure not to overuse your warnings and cautions. Use them sparingly to increase effectiveness. You don't want a tip for every single step, okay? That they should, in that case, just include it in your step. Tips are for when it's especially like a tricky step. Okay, Once you've got your introduction and your list of materials, and you've thought about some warnings or cautions, how to write the steps in your procedure. Okay, eventually, I think you're going to want to put these in order and number them. You might not always number them in a procedure, but they definitely have to be in order, and it helps to number them sometimes. Make sure to put one task in each step and group the stuff together. You can give hints, notes, tips. You can include graphics. They can have to do with warnings, cautions, notes. Make sure you say if a person follows one step, they should proceed to a different step, or, based on consequences, which one should they go to, okay? All right, don't forget your conclusion. So, introduction, list of materials if applicable, warnings, cautions, list of steps, and a conclusion. Again, and as you would a memo, they should be a succinct wrap-up in which you reassure the reader. Usually in a procedure, you're reassuring them, saying, okay, now you know how to do this, you can be confident in it. It's not usually congratulations. Sometimes it is. Tell them what to expect and provide your info and hyperlinks for any additional questions and concerns. Okay? All right. Why should you write a procedure? All right. Well, procedures help you to train your staff more effectively. If they can look at it and read it as well as doing it, they'll be more likely to remember it. You can sell your procedures as part of your business if you decide to sell your business and get much more money for them. They make human errors much less likely. And if you're sick one day, if you're the owner or a manager, you can be sure that they have proper steps to follow. You don't have to be there watching and making sure they're doing everything exactly right. It also helps clients to receive more consistent service and ensures fairness in employee treatment. Okay. How are policies different from procedures? Policy is a set of rules and regulations, usually written by lawyers, not always. The policy protects your company from legal missteps. A procedure is different. A procedure is a step-by-step guide to how to follow the policy. It puts the policy into easy to digest and understandable language. Okay? All right. What is a process? How is a policy different from a process, different from a procedure? All right. Policy, again, legal document, rules and regulations. It gives you a framework. A process is oftentimes going to be much more, you're going to have to write a lot more. You're going to have to fill in a lot of the holes that the policy leaves. So a process is an outline or an overview of how to complete the task. So I want you to find a policy. Remember, it's written in legal definitions. I provided you an example of one in the activity for this week, so you can find that policy. But the policy is not going to give you everything you need to write a process or procedure. So find your policy, and then think about your process. What should you do first? What is the outline? What is the overview? Okay, this can help you when it comes to your set of steps for your procedure. Okay. Once you've found the policy and completed the process, then try to write your procedure with the introduction, the list of materials, the warnings, the steps, and the conclusion. Okay. Okay, so what to include in a procedure, in particular, not your policy, not your process, is what to include in your procedure. Make sure you tell your employees how, that should be obvious, but also when, and where and why to adhere to a certain policy. Does it ensure the continued success of your business? Does it ensure that they will not be fired? Does it ensure whatever, right? Why should you do this? When should you do this? Should you do this all the time or only in specific situations? Make sure you use headings. Make sure you give explanations when they're needed. And make sure you include definitions if you need to. For instance, if you were writing a procedure about how to dress appropriately for work, you probably need to give a definition of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. Okay? Make sure your procedure is in memo format, and make sure you include warnings, cautions, and notes about what employees can do and what they cannot do or should not do. Okay? Here's a couple other tips for writing your procedure. Sometimes it's nice to include checklists. So if you're doing one for how to dress appropriately for work, you can include a checklist. Check your feet. Check off if your feet, if your footwear is appropriate, and that will be up to you to decide. All right, checklists are good. Make sure that the checklist/steps are simple and easy to follow. Include a clear explanation within every step, okay? And include any relevant details that your employees might need to know. Here's some examples of policies that people have used in the past and adapted into a procedure. Now, these are policies that they found online. They already exist. You don't have to write a policy. Policies are usually written by legal teams. Okay, so find an already existing policy. A policy about how to invoice products, how to apply for leave, how to reserve a company vehicle, how to request reimbursement for travel expenses, how to file a grievance, how to appropriately follow social media. Now, this one is tricky. You might think it's easy, but it's not. So don't get deceived and be like, oh, I'll do that one because it sounds easy, because it's not. Okay? How to upload a video, how to prepare a quote for a customer, how to hire a contractor or a new employee. These are all good examples of policies you could do. Now, Nichols College also has a bunch of policies. They have one about hazing, they have one about alcohol use. If it's appropriate for your business, you may use one of Nichols College policies and adapt it for your business, but only if it's appropriate. Like an alcohol policy might be appropriate if you're running a bar, probably not if you're running a daycare or something like that, okay? Other ones could be like bullying. Maybe hazing is an example of bullying that you want to eliminate. Now, if you do decide that you want to use a Nichols College policy, here is how you find them. Go to Nichols, and if you go to Student Life, the policies are right there, okay? But you can also just, search online for bullying policy or something like that, okay? Policies and laws, and you're going to adapt them into a procedure. So how to interact with people in a way that's not bullying, for example. And that might be good if you have a daycare, okay? All right, so for this week, I want you to look here, and here is your procedure activity. Now, this is not a draft of the procedure you'll ultimately turn in, but it is necessary. So if you go to your procedure activity, download this, look at how to file a grade challenge at the University at Albany, not at Nichols, because Nichols, it's run by business people, and it usually is pretty easy to follow. This university does not have an easy to follow policy for filing challenge to a grade change or for a grade. So say you got a grade that you didn't agree with. You're gonna take this policy and you're going to put it into a procedure. All right, so you're writing to a student, this is what to do if you got a grade that you didn't agree with. Warnings, cautions, steps, why you should read it, stuff like that, okay? After you do that, I also want you to find your policy, a policy that you'd like to adopt and adapt for your business, adapt into a procedure, and you're going to put that, you're just gonna show it to me so I can sign off on it and make sure you're not getting yourself into trouble, okay? All right, please let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and happy writing.